Trevor Bauer is back in the NPB with the Yokohama DeNA BayStars, and his first start wasn't really how he pre-scripted his return. The Orix Buffaloes have been hit with some injury issues in the bullpen, and after 6 seasons, the Jet Balloons are back at the Koshin Stadium. We have all of this and more in today's edition of Japan's Baseball Report.
You're listening to the Japan Baseball Report, your weekly English language podcast that provides news and notes related to Japanese baseball.
Well, 34-year-old Trevor Bauer is back in the NPB with the Yokohama DeNA BayStars after a one-year hiatus to Mexico. This is a slim and trim version of Bauer who shed some pounds in the offseason and looked the part on the mound at the Kyocera Dome over the weekend. Prior to the game, Bauer took to social media, and he had said that he was quoted in many media outlets as saying that he wanted to strike out every other batter he faced. Well, that didn't quite go as planned, but Bauer, who is known for his tongue-in-cheek approach to media outlets, doesn't have much to get the Bauer haters all riled up. Bauer worked 3 innings. He threw 49 pitches while facing 15 Buffalo batters, and he struck out only 2. He did struggle at times with his command as he did walk 2 batters. Bauer did allow 2 unearned runs as the BayStars butchered a double play opportunity to potentially get him out of that second inning. The start was Bauer's first with the BayStars this preseason, and there's still 3 weeks to get the rust off before the season gets going. And we will talk a little bit more about Bauer when we get to the BayStars in today's roundup. Our first look is of the Hiroshima Carp. We'll take a look at the Carp here as there's plenty of time to play, but if there is time to play poorly, this is it. The Carp have been not very good in their exhibition games as they have won 2 out of 8 contests, and the manager, Takahiro Arai, is not really concerned. At this point, the offense has been pretty inept as they were shut out for 3 consecutive games and have now gone scoreless in 30 straight innings. Arai was quoted as saying, "There's nothing to be pessimistic about. Even the reliable leadoff hitter Shogo Akiyama had an accident as he was hit by a pitch near his right knee his second at bat in the 3rd inning and was replaced due to injury." Well, we'll see how it goes tomorrow, the 10th. For now, I think he's okay, as what the manager Arai was quoted as saying, emphasizing that his injury was minor as he left the stadium, but it was a scary moment because already the Carp are without their star catcher Shogo Sakakura, who had fractured his middle finger on his throwing hand, and he's still going to be out and may miss the start of the beginning of the season. Well, that is the Carp, and we move over and we look at the Yomiuri Giants. Well, the Yomiuri Giants have won 5 of their 8 exhibition games and have a 3-game set coming up against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, with the first game going off in Nagasaki this week and then the other 2 at the PayPay Dome. But the jewel games on the schedule for the Giants is when they face the Chicago Cubs and Los Angeles Dodgers at home this weekend. As, of course, the Tokyo series will be gearing up as the Dodgers and Cubs open Major League play, but getting a chance to play exhibition games against the Japanese clubs are a good thing. It'll be Masahiro Tanaka who will get the ball for the Giants as he is with his new team this year for the first time, coming over from the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles. In Tanaka's last start against the Hanshin Tigers, he gave up 2 hits and 1 run in 3 innings on 48 pitchers. Manager Abe was quoted as saying that, quote, "I thought he was a little slow to get going. I could tell he was worried about his start, so he might pitch a little longer next time. So I hope he'll show us the corrections that he's made there." And certainly getting the opportunity to pitch against a big league club, which he had done for many years as part of the New York Yankees organization. If he has got himself going early on here, I'm sure it would be something that would be a shot in the arm for the Giants. Of course, bringing in the veteran, I'm not saying that he's replacing Tomoyuki Sagano because that's a tough act to follow as Sagano has taken his act to Major League Baseball. But certainly his veteran presence will steady the ship in that rotation, especially coming off a year where He had missed quite a bit of time because of the surgery. One would expect that Masahiro Tanaka should be able to rebound here going forward. Our next team up is the Yokohama DeNA BayStars. As we go back to the BayStars and talk a little bit more about Trevor Bauer. And I got a chance to watch the game, and I went back and watched it on the replay as well, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle in the second inning, and that was Bauer was able to induce a double play with the bases loaded. It ended up cashing on the first run of the game for the Buffaloes. But the next batter that he was to face with a runner at third, he balked home the runner at third. And what had ended up happening was when he threw the first pitch to the Buffaloes' Masahiro Nishino, the home plate umpire, Miyatake Kenta, raised his right hand and called for a balk, allowing the runner to come home from third to score. It was Bauer had spread his arms out and kind of made the gesture as to why, and so did the manager Miura, who had come out of the dugout to ask the third base umpire Hideru Fuka, who was the one who was responsible for making the call of the balk. And Fuka went to the mound to explain the reason for the balk was that to Bauer through an interpreter. The reason for a balk is that a balk was called due to a change in pitching motion. And one of the things that's interesting is that in Major League Baseball, when a pitcher is going to go from the windup, he has to announce it to the umpire. Usually the home plate umpire will be told that he's going to go from the windup. And that is maybe where there's been some lost in translation. There's no real rule in the NPB rule books that indicate that, like in Major League Baseball, they have to indicate that they are going to be pitching from a windup versus a stretch position. So when Bauer started pitching, he put his right foot on the pitching plate, or the pitching rubber, and stopped with his left foot in front of the plate. And the umpire probably judged the situation as the set position. And then Bauer then pulled his leg back, or his left foot back, and went into a windup. And so it was natural to be judged that he had changed his pitching motion after setting up. And the interesting part to that is that he was almost in a bit of a side saddle type mode. The official baseball rules do not allow for changes in pitching motion, and the definition of a set position in the Japanese rule book. A pitcher is considered to be in a set position when he stands facing the batter, touches the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot, and places his other foot in front of the pitcher's plate. So in other words, that side saddle that Bauer ended up rocking into ended up costing him for a balk. They also go on to say that when he holds the ball in front of his body with both hands and is completely still, that would turn that into a wind-up position for him. Bauer's first movement fell into the category, and he was judged to be in the set position. And from there, he pulled his left foot back and threw the ball with a wind-up. So this was a change in the pitching motion. However, the next moment, Bauer reportedly notified the third base umpire and the home plate umpire with both eye contact and gestures that he was leaving the set position to go into the wind-up. But as we said, in Major League Baseball, there is a rule that allows for the change in pitching motion once the pitcher notifies the umpire that he'll be doing that from the windup before the next hitter comes to bat. Well, apparently Bauer mistakenly thought that the same rule would apply in Japan, but as we said, there's no such rule in the official rules. But I know that there was a umpire in North America who is of Japanese descent who is working in the minor leagues, and he felt that the Japanese rules need to come on song with the rest of the world, and they've got to make an adjustment to get that into the rule book as well. So that is where we take it with the BayStars, and we're going to move over to the Chunichi Dragons as we carry our way through the Central League. The Chunichi Dragons have won 4 of their 8 exhibition contests so far. The highlight this week was winning their game at the Koshin Stadium versus the Hanshin Tigers. And you kind of have to look at it this way, that the Dragons need to get as many small victories as they possibly can. We know it's an exhibition game for sure, but the Dragons were downright brutal at the Koshin in 2024. The view, at least from the Dragons standpoint, is it was not just an exhibition game. It's a game that is a pivotal point to move forward from. Chunichi pounded out 11 hits and 7 runs versus the Tigers. Last year in 2024, the team was the first Dragons franchise to finish for 3 consecutive years in last place. And on top of that, they did not win a single game at the Koshin, losing 10 games, tying 1. And they scored 17 runs in the 11 games, averaging 1.55 runs per game. I'm not sure how many teams are going to win ball games when you're only scoring 1.55 runs per game. Well, we're at the quarter pole. We're going to take just a little brief time out. We're going to come back and carry on with the Central League team. So stick around, everybody. We'll be right back after this little timeout. You are listening to the Japan Baseball Report, brought to you by Last Raps Baseball. Join our Facebook group called NPB Japan Baseball Report and connect with other fans of the Japanese game. If you aren't on Facebook, be sure to bookmark our YouTube channel for live events in the 2025 season. The Yakult Swallows are in an interesting position. We had talked about in one of our spring updates that they have had some injuries in the starting rotation. They also have a couple of other players that have joined the team this year in the offseason. And one of those players is Igor Emoji, who was a free agent from the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles. And he made his presence felt earlier this week with a couple of hits and an RBI in one of the games. He had an infield single off of with the pitcher. And then he added another base hit later on in the ball game, marking it the first time he had a multiple hit game in the exhibition season. Well, he's getting an opportunity to play some second base with Tetsuya Yamada out of action due to a dislocated finger tendon in his left hand. Moji had made the impact with the bat and said enthusiastically, quote, "I want to prepare so that I can produce results in the position I'm given," unquote. Well, I'm not sure where Moji's going to fit in realistically in Yakult. When he was with the Tohoku Rakuten Gold Eagles, he played quite a bit of third base when we watched their games. Never really saw much at second base. If I remember correctly, he did get a cup of coffee a few years ago at the shortstop position, but nothing really to write home about, as both Hirota Kobakata at the time and now, of course, Murray Biashi have taken over the roles there for the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles. But I'm only speculating in this part. The 31-year-old, I think he fell out of favor in Tohoku. He never really received a regular opportunity last season. And with the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles going through managers in the last 5 seasons, as they had, this is the third manager in 3 years, possibly a change of scenery for Moji can sometimes do wonders for a player. We wonder if this will help Moji. But he is in a bit of a tough situation, as the third baseman Murakami is, of course, the big stud and the power-hitting left-handed stick. And then, of course, with Tetsuya Yamada at second base, that's pretty tough to knock out those two players out of the position. So the opportunities that Moji will have to present himself is when the others are either DHing or, in this case, injured, unfortunately, for Yamada. Well, that is our report on the Swallows. We'll take a quick peek here at the Hanshin Tigers. And the big news with the Tigers this week is that it is the first time in 6 years that jet balloons were allowed to be dispersed in the stands. And for those of you who aren't really sure what the jet balloons are, not all the teams will let them off. The Seibu Seibu Lions last year let the balloons off when I was at their park, as well as the Hiroshima Carp and the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks off the top of my head. But those are the ones that the fans bring into the game. They have the little handheld pumps. They blow up the balloons. And then usually, instead of a 7th inning stretch, it'll be the balloons will be dispersed between the top and the bottom half of the 7th inning, and they all get let off into the stadium. And the thing is that though they're let off and they go up into the air and it's kind of neat and fun and the crowd really enjoys that, they don't really get too much onto the field. When we noticed in at least the game we're at in Hiroshima, they might make it onto the warning track that edges around the stadium, but the balloons for the most part are pretty easily contained and they are just recycled back in. But one of the reasons that they hadn't been issuing them in Osaka with the Hanshin Tigers was because there were still concerns over the virus that we had a number of years ago in 2020. It seems like a long time ago now. But they, when they let them off the other day, that you could hear the sounds popping as they were being inflated and then popping. And as we said, it wasn't a scene that they had seen in a few years. And so with that being said, that is what they're going to do. They're going to do it again in another couple of weeks, as they are still testing that. But they said 40,000 balloons were into the sky after the pitcher Sakai's excellent pitching performance the other day. So that is the Hanshin Tigers. We're going to take a little pause, and then we're going to jump over into the Pacific League when we return in just a couple of moments on the Last Drafts Baseball YouTube channel, or you're listening to the Japan Baseball Report wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be right back in just a few. The Japan Baseball Report has been brought to you by Last Drafts Baseball. If you would like to reach us with questions or comments, our email address is info@lastdraftsbaseball.com. We'll respond to as many comments and questions in the upcoming episodes that we can. We appreciate your listenership and look forward to seeing you at one of our live stream listening parties this season. Next up is the Orix Buffaloes, and they have really struggled here in the exhibition season as they've won 1 of 7 games that they've played. The big news this week is that they've been hit with the injury bug in their pitching staff, but mainly in the bullpen. Kind of sad to hear that the former number 1 pick of the Hokkaido Nippon-Ham Fighters is Kosei Yoshida, who was dealt to the Buffaloes, who kind of had a coming out party last year for Orix out of the bullpen, literally. And he has been the latest recipient of a Tommy John surgery. He'll be out for all of 2025, and he will return at some point during the 2026 season. As we said, a bit sad for the former number 1 pick. He was a Koshin legend. If you want to hear the full story, you should go back and check our Orix Buffaloes team preview. We talk about it a little bit, about how, as a high schooler, how many pitches he threw in a very short window of time. It was basically a legend at the Koshin level. The other pitcher that they are not really sure yet, I haven't seen anything else come across the wire, and that would be Yuki Utagawa, is scheduled to undergo a detailed examination on his right elbow. He was rehabbing during the offseason after he was diagnosed with a muscle injury in the flexor digitorum superficialis in his right elbow. Well, I'm not sure what that is, but I remember we were calling a game last year watching the Buffaloes play, and he literally walked off the mound after throwing a fastball that registered in at about 80 miles an hour. And you could see he was walking off the mound in tears. He was having some problems, and Utagawa was a really big part of the Buffaloes bullpen when they had gone to the Japan series in back-to-back years, certainly the last couple of years. But he was really not the same pitcher last year at all that we had witnessed, and so it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up for the power right-hander. He's able to recover from any type of surgeries moving forward. We'll change streams and we head over and take a peek at the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. The big news out of their camp was Yuki Yanagita, the star right fielder, suggested at 36 years old that he wants another kick at the can to see if he can play in the 2026 World Baseball Classic. Last season, Fukuoka won the league championship in the Pacific League for the first time in 4 years, but lost to Yokohama in the Japan series. Yanagita was quoted as saying that, quote, "We were able to become number one in Japan last year, so I want to do my best to become number 1 in Japan as well." As he went on to say that he wants to play for Samurai Japan again, he was quoted as saying, "I think there's a chance that we will achieve incredible results this year, so I'll do my best with that as my goal. It's the last one after all." And so people were asking, saying, last one after all. Apparently his contract is up at the end of the season. And so he's not on contract yet. So if he maybe uses the World Baseball Classic as a swan song, or maybe they re-up him for another year, depending on how he does this year. But certainly both Yanagita and Kensuke Kondo, big parts of the Fukuoka batting order, as they do hit in the 2 and 3 spots. So we'll see what the tricks they have up their sleeve in Fukuoka are for him this year. Our next up is the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles. And for me, this is a team in flux. I think the Eagles are on the downward trend. Eagles have won 2 out of the 8 exhibition games they played this year, and manager Hajime Miki was last in charge of the Golden Eagles in 2020. This is his second tour of duty as the manager of the Tohoku Ball Club. And when there's change, you have to wonder who is going to miss out offensively through the changes. And right now, as far as I'm concerned, there's 4 positions that are locks. And if I think of the locks, I think of it's going to be up the middle with Moribayashi at short and Kobakata at second. One would have to think it would be a miracle for those 2 players to be displaced. Tatsumi in center field and Yuya Ogo in right, who both played every single game of the season last year for the Eagles. But the positions that are up for grab are the corner infield spots, catcher and left field, as I think that they are probably leaning towards trying to get those to be upgraded. And that brings into the question about Hideo Asamura is how much time is he going to play at third base? And will he be DH'd more a little bit this season? Because they moved him off of second base last year, moved him over to third, and he is now starting to be in the back end of his prime and in the twilight of his career. And so what they're going to do with him will be important. Import Mikhail Franco had played some first base last year, and veteran Daichi Suzuki had I'd call it a bounce back year, but he was showing some decline over the last couple of years, but had himself a pretty good season. So now the question is how is that going to play out over on that side of the infield? Will Franco get some more time? Will Suzuki hold down the spot? But then lastly is the position behind the plate, with Hikaru Oda being pushed by Yuma Yasuda and Tsuyoshi Ishihara. Yasuda last year really swung the bat pretty good toward the end of the year, showed some pop, got a chance to get in there, but he didn't really catch a whole lot. He DH'd, played a little bit in the infield. The other one is Tsuyoshi Ishihara. Is Ishihara, when we refer to him, he is the Alejandro Kirk of Tohoku baseball. You can only imagine what that is if you're a fan of the Toronto Blue Jays in Major League Baseball. So try to think in your mind of what Alejandro Kirk looks like. And there you'd have yourself Tsuyoshi Ishihara. Well, those are our other 3 teams that we've looked at. We've got 3 more to come here in the Pacific. We're going to take another little timeout before we come back. So stick with us here on the Japan Baseball Report. We appreciate you guys being with us. We'll be right back in just a few. You are listening to the Japan Baseball Report, brought to you by Last Drafts Baseball. If you are into the NPB, be sure to join us for our listening parties and live English commentary on the Last Drafts Baseball YouTube channel beginning March 28th, 2025. If you're just here for the podcast, it can be found on YouTube and wherever you download your podcasts. Our next up is the Hokkaido Nippon-Ham Fighters. The Fighters have won 4 of their 6 domestic exhibition games, and that doesn't include the 2-game series that they went over to play in Taiwan. The highlight has been the continued improved play of Chusei Minami. Minami decided to modify his swing through his own training as he went to the United States in January in Arizona. I was working out down there, and while trying and failing during camp, he hit 2 home runs 2 consecutive games in the Taiwan series. So we got a chance to see Minami play last year. And if I had to look at a positional player that could be coming over to Major League Baseball next, when you look at the players that are currently in Major League Baseball that are Japanese, you've got Masataka Yoshida, you got Seiya Suzuki, and really it is a pitching dominant pipeline, I guess is the way I would put it, from the players that have been coming over from Japan. But I would have to say Minami could be an option, just the way that he is developing and playing. If he was to come across, he would be a polished player in 2 or 3 years' time. But very strong, has some raw power, showed the ability to make some good contact, be able to drive the ball the other way. He has some wheels, and his arm will play out as he is the right fielder for the Fighters. So curious to see if maybe he would make a jump in 2 or 3 seasons, but he has to continue to improve with the bat, cutting down strikeouts, putting the ball in play, and a continue increase in power would all serve him well if he decided to make a jump across the ocean to the United States. Our next up is the Chiba Lotte Marines. The Marines have won 3 of 7 games in the exhibition season, and it'll be on the 11th where Chiba pitcher Shuta Ishikawa will make his first home start against the Hokkaido Nippon-Ham Fighters. It's the first time since transferring from the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks after exercising his domestic free agent rights. Ishikawa has 56 wins in 12 years and is expected to fill the void left by Roki Sasaki. I hate to always put pressure on people like that because when one person leaves, the other person comes in and the expectations are they're going to be the same. Ishikawa is going to get some opportunities to get the ball every 6 days with the rotation being set in Chiba. And one would have to think that he will steady that opening left by Roki Sasaki. So the Marines, well, they've got their work cut out for them. They're going to have 4 domestic, looks like, starters and possibly even 2 imports in the starting rotation. So we'll keep an eye on how the Marines will play out here this year. But that is what we expect in Chiba. Our next up and last up, but not least, is the Seibu Lions. They are 2-2 in their 4 domestic exhibition games. The big news right now is that of pitcher Kona Takahashi, who won his first division game in 546 days. Now, I know it's only exhibition, but it is worth talking about because it was against the last time he did get a win was September 10th of 2023 against the Hokkaido Nippon-Ham Fighters. He recorded a top speed of 97 miles an hour, allowing only 1 hit and no runs in the planned 3 innings of work. I don't know why they would actually give him a win in 3 innings because that's really not an official ball game. I know it's exhibition, so sometimes you see things like that. But Takahashi, we saw him pitch actually the last 2 years in Japan. And during the offseason, before the 2024 season, he had requested a transfer from the club. He wanted to be posted to Major League Baseball. And of course, the club declined it. And then he went on to have one of the worst years probably in the last 20 years in the NPB by any starting pitcher. Didn't win a game and got roughed up. But I think the big takeaway from that is where was Takahashi's mental state? When we watched him pitch, he just didn't look like the same pitcher that he was in 2023 or even before. So it kind of makes you wonder when they told him no, if he was kind of pouting or if he was upset because of that. But that is where Takahashi was. And so after the game, he said he felt like he got the batters to hit the ball. He had good tempo and was able to have good rhythm and made it easy to get into. And obviously the pitcher's main job is to create rhythm and make it the game. And so that is where Takahashi felt. Last year with an 11-game losing streak, that tied a Pacific League record. And he did not even pitch in the preseason games due to injury last year. So with the opening game approaching, he is obviously determined. He wants to get off to an incredible start and have a turning point this year in his baseball career, and maybe he can salvage something to be able to get him back to North America. Well, everybody, once again, we appreciate you guys for stopping in and listening to the Japan Baseball Report. It has been brought to you by Last Raps Baseball. You can listen to it on YouTube, or you can get it where you download your podcasts. We'll be back on again later this week. And of course, we are going to start calling some games. So we're going to try to jump on to the Major League games that will be taking place. It'll be the Cubs, the Dodgers, and of course, they've got a couple exhibition games against the Hanshin Tigers and the Yomiuri Giants. So as it will shape up, we'll try to get on to those, give you the call. And then, of course, we're into Major League Baseball as well as the NPB toward the latter part of the season. Once again, everybody, appreciate you listening in, and we hope you all have a great day. We will be back again in the next couple of days with some more on the Japan Baseball Report.